in 1942, Germany introduced the Tiger. Now, you may think the Tiger is, great tank, very heavily armored and armed. Not much can penetrate it, and its gun, its Kt.2 36 88mm, could essentially put a hole through all that armor. And so you may think, it's the best tank of that time. Lasted all to 1944, which actually isn't that long, because it wasn't the best, because it was so heavy and over-engineered. It was unreliable and really expensive to make. Like, Tigers would break down a lot on the battlefield. There are stories of Tiger crews, going along to battle, and then their engine will fail, the gearbox will go, the track will break, and they waited for mechanics to come and fix it, but they never came, because there were only a few mechanics that could actually fix a Tiger, because they were so hard to make. Even though they were really heavily armored and a good 1-to-1 tank, it was really hard to make, so they couldn't make a lot of them. So it's actually not the ideal tank, because first of all, it's really unreliable, and you can't make many of them. So the Tiger, not actually the best tank. If Germany actually stuck with producing Panzer IVs, might have been good. Anyway, so maybe heavy tank is not the way to go. Maybe that's what the Panther's for. Introduced in 1943, the Panzer V Panther was technically a medium tank. It was classified as medium. Even though it is classified as medium, though, it is still pretty heavy. It actually has quite a bit of armor, similar to the Tiger, and it had the 75mm KWK 40 anti-tank gun, which was a really good gun. Had sloped armor, so it was hard to penetrate, but still, it was over-engineered and expensive and not really reliable. Broke down quite a bit, and yeah, it's actually pretty overrated. People saying it's the best tank of the war. It can't be the best if it keeps breaking down. So I don't think it really is the best tank. Compare it to other medium tanks of the war. The Sherman, of course, was much lightly armored, much lightly armed. So in one-on-one combat, yeah, sure, the Sherman will get blown apart, but because the Sherman was so easy to manufacture, there would be so many of them that simply couldn't commence with the amount of Shermans. And then there was the Cromwell too. Those were easier to make. The engine was reliable. The Rolls-Royce Meteor. And on top of that, it was faster as well. Really fast. And then, so yeah, the Panther was actually pretty overrated. So, let's see. Germany doesn't have the best tanks of 1942, 1944. And they don't have the best infantry weapons. What about the last year of the war? They had some creative stuff in last year of the war, right? Okay, let's take the King Tiger. Absolutely nothing could penetrate it. It had the biggest gun ever. Could bolt through anything. But it's the same thing, same story as the Tiger. It's even heavier, and some delays led to the same engine being used from the Tiger 1 to the Tiger 2, which made it extremely slow and extremely unreliable. So they only made about 1,000 of them, so they weren't very numerous, and overall it just kept breaking down. There's stories of Soviet captured Tiger 2s, and it broke down every 10 to 15 minutes when they're transporting back to Soviet Russia. So the Tiger 2 was probably even worse off as the Tiger 1 because of how much heavier and over-engineered it is. So we've covered tanks and infantry weapons, but what about the other stuff, the V2 rocket, all those other stuff like planes too? Well, first of all, the V2 rocket, as much as it's revolutionary and everything, it's kind of similar to the Tiger story. You can't produce that many of such revolutionary equipment, and it'll cost a lot, and you'll use up all your supplies. And planes, for example, this is kind of a different story because I think the other countries, like for most of the war, actually had like either similar or better planes. Like at the Battle of Britain, the Bf-109E was up against the Spitfire and the Hurricane. Hurricane slightly worse, but the Spitfire was like a match, yeah? Like they were pretty close in performance. And then later on, they got the FW-190. Yeah, that was a good plane as well. Lots of horsepower, very high speed, good armament, and the British had the Spitfire Mark V to match, or later the Mark 9. But then the later war, where they had like the ME-262, like people say that's a brilliant plane. It's jet engine, it's brand new. As much as it did rule the skies, it was a very good plane. It's still the same thing. They bombed all the factories, so they couldn't produce enough of them. That kind of stuff. So I guess you could call the Luftwaffe one of the best equipped. But look at the bomber side of things. The HE-111 medium bomber was more short range. It couldn't go overseas and stuff. And I guess that's how the Blitz failed, because it couldn't go long distances, I guess. Well, the fighter escorts definitely couldn't. I think the bombers could. But yeah, the American and British bombers, they were long range. They could do strategic bombing runs all over Berlin. And I guess that's what crippled the German war machine. So, whether or not Germany had the best stuff is still kind of up in there, because they definitely had pretty good stuff. They had pretty advanced stuff, but maybe not the best stuff because how advanced they were. So, like when people say Germany definitely had all the best stuff of the war, I don't think that's actually true. They had probably the most advanced stuff, but not the best stuff because of how advanced it was. It's all the same story. They're over-engineered and everything. So, I guess Germany can never really have won the war, even if they had better stuff, because they simply couldn't compete industrially with the Western allies. So, yeah. That's the end of the video today. This is our second Tube of History video. It's a bit longer, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. The visuals have been edited by Sushi Hanger. Go check out her channel, and goodbye.